If the idea of running dungeons in games like ESO or WoW or other big MMOs really piques your interest, but the idea of grinding for hours and hours of missions and leveling a character just doesn't pique your interest at all, or honestly just makes you sick, then I've got a game for you. The independent developer Chief Rebel and publisher Arc Games have created the perfect game for somebody who wants to jump in and experience that dungeon game style without the need to grind hours and hours worth of missions. And that game is called Fellowship. It is a multiplayer online dungeon adventure, MODA, the first of its kind. It's set in a fantasy setting with scaling difficulty of various different dungeons. You have to work together with 3 other people, a group of 4, through various different enemies and ultimately killing a boss or maybe even 3 bosses at the end of the dungeon. The game will require you to master your hero and level, except you don't have to worry about grinding random mobs out in an open world or doing fetch quests for random NPCs. Fellowship began development in 2018 when Chief Rebel was established. The team behind the game came up with the initial idea based on a MOBA that centered around PvE instead of PvP. That basic idea evolved into Fellowship with the addition of dungeon experiences that you have during most common MMOs. Instead of requiring you to grind for hours upon hours to get your character up to the required level to run the dungeon, they figured, why not just let people jump straight into that part of the game? If you've experienced yourself or have seen people run Dead Mines or Nomergon or even Molten Core, those are dungeons and raids in WoW, and you wanted to do that as well, but don't want to invest 20 to 50 to even 200 hours in the game to reach that level, this could be the game for you. Of course, the opposing side of the argument against this game design is that most of the story comes from the gameplay between those dungeons. And it is a very valid point. If you are looking for story, I don't think this game will be for you. They have stated that they may add story elements eventually if the community wants it, but it's not there right now, and that's probably not planned for a while. I don't know how difficult it would be for them to add that, but it doesn't look like it's on their radar. To argue against that though, I recently got back into WoW, and during my gameplay, I found a lot of the fun in the game came from running dungeons. Also, most of the gear I was using during my time came from drops in dungeons as well. Around level 15 to 20, I was doing Dead Mines, and the gear I got there held me over until that dungeon that's in Stormwind. I can't think of the name of it, but you run that dungeon, it doesn't drop as much gear, but then that holds you over until Nomergon at 28. And then most of the gear I got from Nomergon was holding me over until I got to Scarlet Monastery in my mid 30s, and you understand from there. So the story is cool, and I remember running fetch quests and doing other parts of the story, but for the most part, the big parts of the game came from my experiences in dungeons and running those dungeons over and over the course of a few hours to build up my gear set. So honestly, I'm okay with them cutting out the middle ground and getting me straight into the dungeon runs. Which, by the way, a quick word to the developer, I want to run dungeons multiple times before I get enough gear to go to the next one. Don't just throw loot at me. That'll lessen the impact of the gear drops. And if I want that, I'll just go play Diablo or Destiny or something else like that. To continue, I have compiled all of the information that I could find on Fellowship. So let's jump in and take a look at what the game is, all of the different mechanics, the heroes you'll be able to control, and what exactly they have planned for this game. Of course, I may have missed something, or I might have gotten something wrong. If you have different information or you think I left something out, leave it down below in the comments. Let's jump in. You start the game in your shared world hub called the Stronghold. This is where your group comes to in between dungeons and adventures. At the current time, there are no quest givers from what I've heard, but maybe in the future, this is where you will be able to go to pick up quests for NPCs, in addition to other things. While you adventure around, you won't just see your other 3 players in the group as well. They're saying that lobbies should go to between 20 to 30 players, so there should be a lot of other people running around, and you can connect with random people that way to form teams. In your hub, you'll be able to craft equipment, scrap loot to be able to receive a special resource that can be used to upgrade gear. You'll also be able to socket gems to your equipment and transmute some gear that you don't want. To get into those last few systems a little, gems will be a little bit different than what you're used to. In addition to giving you additional stats, you can also use gems to unlock defensive abilities, offensive abilities, passive abilities, and do some other cool things with your character. The transmutation system is a way for you to use those unlucky drops and turn them into something you may actually use. In higher difficulty dungeons, you will obtain a transmutation resource. You can use this resource and gold to turn an item you don't want or need into another item. If you're lucky, it will be something you can actually use. Note that the gem and transmutation system comes later in the game. It's not something that, at least from what I've seen, is introduced in the first part of the game. So you'll have to do a couple dungeon runs before you get access to those. Once you're ready to leave though, you can select to create a group or find a random group of people. In Fellowship, you can play a dungeon which has 3 bosses for you to kill, or an adventure which just has 1 boss to kill. If you're strapped for time or you don't want to do a super long run, jump into an adventure which should take 10 to 15 minutes. Dungeons will most likely take 20 to 30 minutes, so plan accordingly. And also, if you increase the difficulty, it will increase the amount of time it takes to complete. Beyond those 2 types of activities, you can also select a quick play dungeon, which throws you into the first thing that's available that also meets your search criteria, or you can choose a ranked dungeon with increasing difficulty. There are also dungeon modifiers that they are calling curses, which can change the difficulty and add different modifiers to the dungeon. As you increase the difficulty of the dungeon, your enemies will have more skills and abilities at their disposal, and this difficulty could be in the form of new boss mechanics, or a modifier that applies to the entire dungeon. In lower difficulties, bosses may have only a few mechanics or abilities, and that same boss in a higher difficulty could have double or even triple the amount of abilities and mechanics that you have to pay attention to. So it's not just an increase of health, but also an increase in the mechanics whenever you raise the difficulty. So be aware of that. When you're happy with the dungeon you've selected, the difficulty, you have your team, and any of the other minor changes you want to make, you can start the game. There are many ways to progress through a dungeon, and as you play, you'll notice a kill meter filling up on the right side of your screen. This kill meter needs to fill to 100% before you are able to complete the dungeon. This game design is to prevent teams from cheesing their way through the map and running straight to the boss, or finding a glitch to get through a bunch of enemies. If you open your map, you can plan out your route based on the kill count you need, so you are taking the most efficient route possible. When you scroll over enemies in the map, it will do a little tooltip to show you how quickly you should be able to kill them and how much kill score they will give you so you can plan. After reaching the right kill count for an adventure, and taking out any other bosses that might be there if you've done a dungeon, you can take on the final boss and receive your rewards. Once the boss is dead, click on the chest to open it and get your reward. On the side of the screen, you'll be able to see what your friends received as well from their chest. Once you are difficulty 4 and above, you'll also have to pay attention to a timer. And in order to progress to the next difficulty, you must kill the final boss before that timer is up. If unfortunately you do not kill the boss before the end of that timer, you will still get rewards, but you will not be able to progress to the next difficulty. Take your rewards to level up your character and possibly increase the difficulty to the next tier. Go back to the stronghold, Deposit all your stuff, upgrade any equipment that needs to be upgraded, do some crafting, and then do it all over again. While you're in a match, the UI can be a little bit jarring at first, but each piece is key to your success and getting better as a player. On the left side, you will see two boxes which show the damage output of each player in the group, as well as their healing. I've seen people online caution that this could lead to toxicity in a group, as well as a form of elitism from those in your party. But I honestly side with the developer here in that they're saying that it is a good thing to have so that people can see how they are performing and then they can improve when needed. Honestly, if you are in an elitist group, just leave and move on. There are plenty of people in the world that are nice and can help you get better, or that aren't jerks and will flame you for not doing enough damage or not doing everything perfectly. Stay positive and have a desire to improve, and you'll be fine. Or if you're already good, just find a different group anyways. And be sure to not be that jerk yourself. If you mouse over the damage meter, you can see what abilities are contributing to your damage, and this can help you improve as well in knowing which abilities you need to concentrate on or getting down a precise order of what you want to do. On the right side, you will see your mini map, and below that is information on your current dungeon. You'll see the name, your current kill score, and how many bosses you have left. At the bottom of the screen, you will see your ability bar with all of your different abilities. And just above that is your team's health bar, including your own, as well as other information like their stacks and their mana. Just to the left of that, you'll see the friendly target you have selected. And on the right of that, you'll see the enemy target you have selected. You can press tab to switch between enemy targets so that you can control multiple enemies. If this UI layout is not how you like it, apparently you can customize it, so feel free to move things around or change sizes based on what freedom they give us. You will notice health meters over each of the enemies, and also the enemy health bars will change colors according to threat. So if you are a tank, be aware of that to make sure that you are keeping aggro on all of the enemies that you are fighting. In addition to that feature, while you have an enemy targeted, you can push V on your keyboard to put your icon on the enemy's health bar, so you'll see your little character next to their health. This feature is a way of tracking cooldowns for interrupt skills. As you progress through the game, eventually it will be very important for you to interrupt boss mechanics in order to stay alive. This feature will let you call out or even visually see without the need for a call out who has an active interrupt skill up when the boss channels an ability that needs to be interrupted. Early in the game, interrupting enemies is not important, but the developer has emphasized that magic damage is a big thing later in the game. And once you get into higher difficulties, you will need to interrupt long wind-up attacks from enemies, otherwise it may one-shot the whole group. Each dungeon and adventure has a unique set of enemies and ultimately the boss that you will fight at the end. Rewards are given out at the end of the match and will affect how your character feels during the next plays. Increasing damage or mitigating more damage is one thing, but to prevent metas from popping up where one character is preferred over the other, the developer has stated that big utility skills such as Mass Dispel or even Battle Resurrection have been moved to equipable items, so you could even have a tank with an item that revives a fallen teammate in theory. In addition to those kind of items, the developer has stated that gear will have a variety of different type of stats like crit, haste, and expertise, for example, and upgrading your hero will come from gear you obtain, but also from talents that are hero specific. Get to higher difficulty dungeons to unlock more abilities for your hero. The team has confirmed that they are working on a couple different heroes, and they do plan on doing a full launch with around 8 to 9 heroes. So we do know there is more planned. And in addition to that, they are planning on more dungeons and adventures. They've also hinted at the idea of a raid, but they're not planning on doing anything like 40-man raids. It would probably be more around the lines of 8 to 12 player raids, but that's really way off down the line. And although the game is centered around PvE, and that is something that they want to primarily concentrate on, they have discussed the idea of having PvP options when it comes to leaderboards, or having a competitive mode where two teams have to try and clear a dungeon at the same time and see who can clear it faster. Sounds like a pretty neat idea, and I like that it's involving PvE but also giving you that PvP nature. At this current time, trading is not in the game, but the developer has stated that it is something that they're looking into and might eventually release. And I must say that whenever you consider the fact that you can see what your friends get from their chests at the end of a dungeon or adventure, I think it's probably going to be pretty easy for them to implement that. So although it's not going to be out now, hopefully it'll be out upon release, because that would be really nice. Even if they lock it behind some kind of a currency that you can only do it a limited number of times, I'd be fine with that. But if a friend gets something that you really need and you get something that's useless to you, it'd be great to be able to trade those. I have seen talk of seasonal content, and I don't know if the developer means just a release schedule of every season getting new heroes or new dungeons and adventures or even new patches, but I'm hoping it doesn't necessarily mean a season pass, although I guess it's not the worst idea, but I'm hoping that games get away from doing that because I just don't think it's fun. Having said that, the developer has said that this is going to be a premium game. So that means it's not going to be free to play, and there definitely won't be a subscription. As it currently stands, there's no plan for microtransactions, but the developers have stated that they like the idea of having different skins and different mounts and even a pet that can follow you around. And my mind immediately jumps to thinking about a microtransaction system. So I would say there's probably going to be some form of a microtransaction system eventually in the game, but I'm hoping that we can at least earn some of those skins or mounts or animals from gameplay, or even achievements that are in the game. They have at least confirmed that they will not be hiding any content behind a paywall. So once you pay for the game and you own it, you'll have access to all of their available dungeons. I don't know how that'll go for years down the line if they plan on continuing with the game that long. Eventually, I assume there would be some kind of a DLC, but maybe not. Maybe this will be a live service game for a while. That would be pretty cool. Fellowship is designed around the holy trinity of healer, tank, and DPS. Before we go into the Steam Next Fest, they have stated that 6 heroes will be available, 2 of each kind. The other day, they released a video on Tarek, another DPS hero, but I'm not sure if they will be out for the Next Fest or at a later date. On one of their press releases or somewhere in maybe another video, I saw that they will be going into the test with 6 heroes. So if Tarek is involved, one of the other DPS heroes listed below may not be involved, and just be aware of that. Another note is that they have no plans currently on releasing multi-role heroes. So every hero that is going to be released will fill a single role of tank, healer, or DPS, not multiples or different parts of one or the other. That may change in the future, but that's their current plan. Each hero starts with 8 abilities, and over time you will gain access to more abilities, ultimately ending with 15 abilities. You gain these abilities by reaching higher difficulties, and every hero will start out with at least an interrupt, a movement skill, and a basic kit for either tanking, healing, or damage abilities. The more advanced abilities that can provide things like crowd control and other utility will come later in the game, so progress to get those. I haven't seen confirmation of it being set in stone forever, but be aware that hero customization is not in the game right now, and I don't see any plan of them adding it. So when you choose a hero, that is what you get. Outside of possibly being able to customize their outfit or a pre-designed skin, they did mention some kind of a mirror that is in the stronghold where you can customize things. But from my understanding, they have ideas for possible future heroes that might be able to copy other heroes or something like that. And I think they want to be able to keep the character model pretty standard so that they can modify and get creative with other areas. So just be aware of that. So let's jump into the heroes. To start off, we have two tanks, Helena and Miko. Helena is a sword and board tanky character. They generate combo points and can use them in combat. Also, you have a currency called toughness that mitigates damage. This hero has taunts and plenty of other ways to keep aggro. But if you're looking for that stereotypical tank role, this is probably it. Miko is a monk physical damage tank. They are all about getting right up in the mix and using their fists and their feet and whatever else they can use to be able to provide damage while also giving themselves buffs to mitigate damage. There are two healers in the game, Vigor and Sylvie. Vigor has a good mix of damage dealing spells and healing spells. If you're looking to heal but also be able to do a little bit of damage, this looks like the guy for you. Meanwhile, Sylvie is like this fox creature that controls these things called flutterflies, which look like butterflies, and you use them to heal your allies. You have different abilities that will send these flutterflies over to allies to give them various different heals or buffs or various different things. Honestly, I think if you want to just go a pure heal build, this seems to be the hero for you. And as it currently stands, it looks like there's 3 DPS heroes, and I don't know which 2 are going to be in the gameplay, but we have Rhyme, Ardios, and the recently announced Tarek. Rhyme is a frost-centered hero that does a bunch of frost-based spells while gaining a currency called Winter Orbs, and you can cash in on these Winter Orbs to do some pretty good damage. Ardios is a fire mage, and they primarily concentrate on applying damage over time abilities. So pretty much everything that they do is going to be a splash damage area effect that is going to get a dot onto as many people as possible. And I would imagine they'll have some way to be able to cash in on those dots as well. Tarek is the most recently announced hero, and they are a two-handed hammer-wielding warrior. Of course, filling in that stereotypical warrior role means you will have a fury bar that will probably increase as you do more damage or as you hit people. But in addition to that, you have a swing timer that you will have to attack around to be able to do better damage. The developer has stated that getting into a rhythm of basing your abilities and attacks around this swing timer should almost feel like you are making music and following the rhythm of music. So I'm pretty intrigued about that. And I will say that if you are looking for a little bit more rewarding gameplay, something to show off your skills, almost like somebody playing Draven in League of Legends and showing off that they can auto attack and pick up the blades and manage all those things, that'll be that rewarding gameplay for you. Again, I don't know which 2 DPS heroes are going to be there, and I might be wrong on any combination of the heroes here, so correct me down in the comments if you know it. Of course, if the game is already out and you're watching this after the 24th, then you might already know. Fellowship will be out for testing February 24th through March 3rd for the Steam Next Fest. They've said that servers will be available in North America, Europe, and Asia. Again, you'll be able to test 6 heroes and a good multitude of dungeons and adventures. I'm not sure if we'll get access to all of them, but it seems like we'll be at least able to test a good amount of them, and we should be able to also increase their difficulty. They have stated that ranked dungeons will be included, so that looks pretty promising for how much we should have availability of. In addition to that, they will be releasing with the gem and transmutation system during this playtest, so it'll be nice to test those systems out as well. I'm pretty excited to jump into Fellowship on the 24th when it comes out for Steam Next Fest, and I hope they don't make us wait too long after that to jump into the full game on release. I've heard that they have plans on releasing it before the end of 2025, but hopefully that's summer of 2025 and not maybe the end of 2025. But guys, that's all I have for you. I look forward to seeing you guys in this game. Y'all have a good one.